we want to make sure that we come in here, we're very respectful, we keep our conversations in French. We're going to make sure that we dedicate to doing at minimum one event.
Hey folks, I'm here at the Canadian Blockchain Consortium's very first event in Quebec, all in French in terms of the programming. I'm here with Koleya Karringten, who's the executive director. You probably know her already by now, but how did it go?
I think it went well. It was a pretty good turnout. We had a lot of registrations and the conversations were good and the networking's going really well. So happy to have our very first event in Quebec, fully in French. I didn't understand a word of it, but I feel like I caught the idea of it through osmosis.
People are smiling and learning and staying, by the way, because the event is almost over, but there's probably another 40 people hanging around. Any first impressions of being here in Montreal and doing a business event like this?
Well, I've gotten some really good feedback on the event so far. People are really enjoying it, great conversations. Definitely it's a new jurisdiction. We've done events in pretty much every other province in Canada, so the little nuances of learning how to host an event in Quebec, such as like French materials and all of that. So it's good to know for next time. Hopefully when we come back in the spring, we'll be much better prepared and we'll be able to encourage more people to come out.
What are you planning for in the spring?
You know, I am not 100% sure on what the topic's going to be. Guarantee it's going to be about blockchain. Might be another topic on mining, since it is such a prominent industry in Quebec that needs a lot of attention right now. Could be a bit of a half and half focus, some on mining and then some on the digital asset side. So
really interesting. Where are we now in the blockchain space?
In Canada?
Let's do Canada.
What? Okay, hold on. You got to quantify that. What do you mean by where are we at now?
Let me put it like this. So your organization is relatively new, but at the same time been around now for a number of years already. So new and old at the same time. I think you have almost 90 members right now.
Like most people would. 90 members. We've been around for 7 years, which in a space that was developed in 2009, 2010 was when it started, getting a little bit more notoriety. Like 2017, we're not totally new, but we're not completely OGs either.
So what is your sense of the place of blockchain in the Canadian narrative, let's say, including in the levels of government, but also corporate Canada and the general public?
I would say that we're actually starting to gain a lot more traction than people might think. The fact that it was a Liberal member of Parliament that hosted the committee to start doing more due diligence on the space. The House of Commons did release a report. It was about 16 recommendations. They did realize the actual value of this industry, what it can bring for Canada in terms of its exports, in terms of economics and growth, job creation, high-paying wages, exactly, innovation. We're seeing our regulators coming to the table, asking our industry questions around frameworks on stablecoins, asking for better clarification on DeFi and staking. We're actually seeing our exchanges getting to the point where it was called IROC, now it's called Zero. We're having regulated exchanges here. The majority of every exchange in Canada has undergone a pre-registration undertaking and are working towards having Zero, which means that the credibility is very, very strong. We're seeing engagement in the consortium in some pretty incredible ways. Like, even though it's like 90 members, but they're corporate members, and we have 9.
There's RBC on the list, I think.
Yes, and Desjardins, and it's like we're excited to see the membership growing. Like, one of our cybersecurity committees, we have former Department of DOJ, we have RCMP, we have Calgary Police Service, Toronto Police Service, we have groups like Elliptic and Chainalysis all supporting developing out standards to enhance cybersecurity practices in this space. We have banking committees supported by Scotia and Royal Bank and Desjardins and Connect First, ATB. We have regulatory committees, virtual asset service technology provider committees. So we have probably over 100 volunteers across country of really credible firms all working towards supporting this space. And there's some governments, some provincial governments that are very, very friendly towards it. Like, we now have 2 ministers that support our file out in BC to develop out a roadmap on how they can expand, this industry in that province and bring in, more jobs, more innovation, more growth.
And in Quebec, in 30 seconds or less, are there key considerations or conversations that are important to Quebec specifically that maybe not the same in Alberta or in Ontario?
I would say Alberta has more of an off-grid mining strategy, which is where the conversations with government may come with a bit better conversation in Quebec. Support, yeah. In Quebec, it seems that there's quite a bit of a disconnect between the value that Bitcoin mining actually brings outside of just minting new coins. Conversations need to be had around Hydro-Quebec. There's, the government seems to have thoughts around the fact that they should be able to determine what energy loads that they should support and pick and choose between that, which doesn't create a fair market economy. So there's a lot of key considerations right now, even federally speaking, the very unfair GST that has come out. So basically mining in crypto they don't consider like any other form of mining, so they're not allowed to receive GST exemptions, and they're almost retroactively going on that. There's a lot of ridiculousness happening right now in the energy market in Newfoundland, where the government's putting unfair market practices in place there that's deterring miners. So and even how mining is being taxed, so they're expecting you to pay tax at the time the Bitcoin was mined, and you have to pay that based on the value of Bitcoin and the cost of production. You pay that tax, but then when you go to sell it, then you're paying capital gains and you're paying on the profit of when you sell it. So if you mined it one day and what you mined it for was potentially at a loss, then you go, or at a profit, then you go to sell it and the market's dropped a little bit, right? So it doesn't make any sense, because there's no other industry that mines that would say, oh, from the time that you mine that gold in the ground, now you have to pay tax. It's not till you go to sell it. So they're taxing you on so many different areas that they're creating deterrents. So our job is to come in and help educate on why they want to see this industry as a value. The fact that it brings high-speed internet into rural communities, it can revitalize old towns, it has higher average paying wages than most other industries. It creates for a lot of innovation, like new academic programmings that can be taught in educational institutions.
And this is true in Quebec too, by the way. On one of the panels, they were talking about how much communities benefited, paid less taxes, etc. in 30 seconds or less, real 30 seconds. Any opportunities for collaboration between Alberta and Quebec in blockchain? Really anything really specific?
Nothing that I could really pinpoint as specific outside of continuing to build the community. I think that Quebec is an amazing province and should be included in the conversation that's happening across the rest of Canada. So we want to make sure that we come in here, we're very respectful, we keep our conversations in French. We're going to make sure that we dedicate to doing at minimum one event per year here to encourage those conversations. So collaboration on the event side, and ideally we'll be able to encourage government officials to come out and see the community and hear the conversations and see where they can bring value from it to their constituents.
We look forward to being a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Koleya.